In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to do Debtors and Creditors Recons. Now, this might be an interesting section for the guys that's doing these types of recons daily. And it might be a really big task if you don't know the right format and you're just struggling to do it in the right way. So I've developed this method of doing the reconciliations a while back, and it works actually really well to do huge types of recons. Now, this is a big recon. Now, Debtors and Creditors Recons normally work on exactly the same principle. You've got invoices, and as I scroll down, you get payments. And normally these payments are big bulk amounts, which pays a few invoices. And obviously for these payments, the client or supplier must actually send you what did they pay. Or if you paid it, you would know what exactly you paid and what's the invoices. And we actually did this. So I've got 7 payments in here, and if I go to payment 1, you would see I've got all the invoices, the dates, and all the invoice amounts. We don't really need the dates, but as long as we've got the invoice numbers and also the amounts that we've paid. So as I scroll down, you'll see there's quite a lot of data. This goes up until line 749, and there's a balance. So currently this client has got a balance of 41,000. Now we would ideally like to see what is this balance consisting of. Now the most advanced systems obviously can give this to you really quickly, but somebody will still need to allocate this, and this sometimes doesn't happen. So how do we allocate this manually on Excel? Step 1 would be putting the total on top. So I'm just going to delete it from the bottom, and I'm going to add a total on top. So equals sum, and just start at the heading, and I've copied a few more down so that if I've got a template and I want to add to this, I can very quickly do that. So I'm just going to copy the totals to the right. The last column is quite important. This is going to be my outstanding amounts. This will be the sum of my original amount plus all my adjustments, and we'll talk about the adjustments right now. So we're just going to copy this to the end, and again you can copy down a few more because if you want to add data, it's very easy to add. Then I'm going to make sure the formats of all these columns are the same. So now whatever I've put in these manual adjustments columns will be taken into consideration there. Now you can start allocating payments in this column. Now what's important is doing a small logical test here to say if that amount is equal to 0. So if it's 0, it will be false. If it's not, it will be true. And then we can just filter on that to know exactly. I'm just taking the filter off and putting it on again. So if I've got a true there and I filter on it, then it means that I'll see all my zeros. And at this stage there's nothing, and false will show me all my outstanding amounts. Okay, so now let's start. Now there's a few ways of doing this. You can either put all your payments into one column, and you can really do it manually if you're not familiar with a lot of formulas. Now I'm going to use the sum is formula. So if I use the sum is formula, and I'm going to say go to payment 1, and I'm going to sum column C. I'm going to look at column A for my criteria, and I'm going to sum via invoice numbers. So obviously my invoices is positive, my payments, and it needs to be negative here. So I copy that down, and you will then see that I've allocated payments. At my outstanding amounts column, it's 0. And you can already see that this one invoice, they short paid. So now just to make sure that this one should be 0, I can go to the first payment, which was done on the 13th. And just do that. So equals minus. So then it means that I've allocated payment 1. So my payments column should always be 0 because I've allocated payments against invoices, and I've also negatived the payments so that they all balance out. Now you can do all your payments into one column, and what you can then do, if you do all in one column, you put in a reference column where you can put next to it, this is all payment 1, and then you can just copy that there so that when you want to see what did I pay payment 1, I know exactly. This works quite well. So make sure you put a reference there and a reference number. So for example, payment 1 or whatever you want to put it, make sure it's unique so that you know exactly what's it about. What I like to do is do the following. Payment 1, and then if I know I've made 7 payments, I can do 7 columns. And now what works quite well, I'm just going to take off the filter here. What I like to do, and if you go back to your sum, ifs, and indirect formula, you can actually use indirect formulas here. Now this 7 names is exactly the same as my 7 names of my sheets. So if I use indirect here, I say indirect, start that one. If you're not familiar with indirect, you can just do it manually as I've just shown you, and then we'll freeze that one, and we put that last ones in inverted commas. So if we just test that, so that works, and then we can just copy and paste this indirect into that field and just change that to A, and obviously we'll also have to stay in column A there. So if we copy that down to the end, you will see, well, I could have just copied and pasted. So currently that will be my payment there. So because I fixed everything properly, if I copy this to the right and I copy all down, then you'll see all your payments coming on top, and then it's just a matter of allocating them. So this is payment 1, that is payment 2, that is payment 3. You could have done a filter here to say number filter, everything less than 0, and then you'll see, so this is payment 4, this is payment 5, and we could have done this with formulas as well, but I'm just showing you manually now. Payment 6 and payment 7. So once you've done that, all your payments should still be 0. And now I've allocated every single payment. So if I do this type of thing, I'm not going to need a reference because I've referenced my columns and I know exactly what every single column is about. So it's very easy to do it. Now if I filter on only the falses, so I take out the trues, then it shows me exactly what's my outstanding amount. So currently it's 41,680 and it balances to the top. So this will show me that this invoice is still outstanding. This one I short paid. So let's say, for example, somebody comes and we need a credit note. So now let's put a comment there. So I need a credit note of 500. So then we can go tell the system that, let's say, the product damaged, do credit note. And when we're done, we can literally just pull a list of these amounts and go do credit notes. The same with this one. Let's say that was also a product that was damaged. So when we're done, we pull a list of all the credit notes, give it to the account clerk, and they can do the credit notes as was required. But this is a nice way of doing reconciliation. So make sure that you've got your payments, you've got the invoices. It might be that these invoices are not in exactly the same format as these invoices, and then you have to use all your advanced formulas, your text formulas, to get it all in the same format. It might be that they've double paid. It might be that you've got duplications here. So you would have to clean up your data before you get to this process. But this process of doing reconciliations on debtors works quite well. Make sure you put your totals on top so that you know exactly what each column is doing. Make sure you put in comments so that you know, can reference always back to what you've done previously. And then make sure that you've got your outstanding amount. And this you can do, and once you pull a download again after you've done the credit notes, your credit notes should also be 0. Or you can allocate this payments any way you would want to do this. So this works quite well.